you said, hug each other, and I'm trying to hug, but she's like changing the conversation.
Okay, well, if I'm being honest, I didn't really see you try to hug her.
Mary always tries to make herself out to be a victim, doesn't she? Brandan's mum has only just arrived in the Philippines, but already Mary is trying to poison Brandan against her. She's trying to push him to pick sides.
I'm not trying to defend her.
From the start, you're defending her, so I want you to be in my side.
I am on your side.
You promised me.
Be very careful what you wish for, Mary, because if you push him enough, if you force Brandan to pick a side, he might not pick yours. But before we get into that, let's go back to the start. So we left them in the last episode just as Brandan's mum arrived in the Philippines. Unsurprisingly, she and Mary got off to a very uncomfortable start, and I have the feeling that things are about to get a lot worse.
Brandan's mom arrived here in Cantonese, and to me, it's been so awkward and I don't know what to say.
Brandan's mum has clearly come to the Philippines with a prickly attitude towards Mary, and who can blame her? But at the same time, Mary is also contributing to that awkwardness. She's just naturally a very awkward person, and so far she hasn't even attempted to take part in any of the conversations being had. And as the group arrives home from the bus stop, Mary is already concerned that she's being judged by Angela.
I'm really worried that she will judge me. When she first got to the Philippines, she just judged the poverty.
Look, Mary's being a bit dramatic here. Brandan's mum just had a completely natural response to seeing such extreme poverty for likely the very first time in her life. You can hardly call that judging.
When we were driving, I guess I wasn't prepared for what I saw. It's all poverty. It's all shacks.
By her own admission, Angela wasn't prepared. She came to the Philippines with no real understanding of Brandan's living situation. So, of course she was going to be concerned about the kind of houses she encountered on her bus ride into town. But as Brandan takes her on a tour of his house, Angela's obviously forgotten that Brandan poured his life savings into building this.
It's better than what I honestly expected. It's not a shack. It's an actual house, like it really is. So I'm very much relieved about that.
Now, while the housing situation might come as a pleasant surprise, there's gonna be plenty of other things that she's going to have to adapt to. Like, for example, the bug situation. Brandan reveals that his mum is terrified of creepy crawlies, to the point where he actually thinks she has arachnophobia. But unfortunately, their house is full of them.
Me and Mary usually sleep in this room, but we want to give you this room because I know you don't like bugs.
Okay.
There's more bugs in the living room than there is in our room.
Oh.
That's a very nice gesture from Brandan and Mary, especially considering Mary's pregnant. It's a very thoughtful act, and you get the impression that it's probably largely driven by Brandan rather than Mary. But either way, Angela will need to adapt to the bug situation, because it's just unavoidable in the Philippines. That is how it is. But let's just give her a little bit of breathing room. Let's give her a moment to adjust. The poor woman's just travelled halfway across the world. She's absolutely terrified of bugs. Yet already Mary is laughing at her. She can't help herself, and it comes across as quite rude.
Will you just, check under for any critters, please? Under the things.
I mean, I can check the bed, but I can pretty much guarantee you that there's nothing underneath the TV stand.
Well,
you can hear genuine fear in Angela's voice, yet Mary is smirking as she watches, as if she's getting some kind of enjoyment from this. Either that, or she thinks that Angela's a wimp because she's scared. I mean, come on Mary, it's day one, hour one. Show the lady some lenience. Big ass spiders are scary.
There's nothing there.
I don't know how you can even sleep with that.
Bobby.
What?
Spider.
Spider? Oh, it's a good thing you got it.
So as they set up Angela's bedding and get rid of what was hopefully the last bug in the room, Brandan and Mary leave her to have what's likely to be a very unrestful sleep. But as the pair have a debrief amongst themselves before bed, Mary starts to get very defensive when Brandan explains that his mum was concerned. She was worried that they might be living in one of those shack dwellings that she drove past on the bus.
Yeah, just letting you know that there's nothing wrong with other homes.
No, I'm not saying that, but like I said before, she has high standards.
Look, I understand that Mary's feeling judged, and she is absolutely right. Many people in the Philippines don't have the luxury of anything else. They have to make do with living in a shack. It's an unfortunate, sad reality of life. But Brandan's mum wasn't being disrespectful. In fact, of all people, Mary should understand exactly where Angela was coming from. Those aren't the sorts of houses that you'd want your son to live in. And that's precisely why Mary and her family also chose to upgrade their house. Their old house wasn't safe, so naturally they wanted something better. And it's exactly the same with Brandan's mum. Naturally she wanted something better for Brandan. That doesn't make her bad, like Mary is desperately trying to make her out to be. And when Brandan rejects her line of reasoning, Mary tries again with a different approach.
Your mom is not talking to me at all.
Okay, well, to be fair, you can put an effort into it.
Angela's flown halfway across the world to make sure that Brandan's okay. This is a whole new environment for her. She doesn't know anyone other than Brandan. Now, on the flip side to that, Mary is surrounded by her fiance, her family. This is an environment she knows well. So how's she making herself out to be the victim here? Brandan just doesn't buy it. He's not willing to accept this narrative that Mary's trying to craft. So Mary decides to shift a gear. She begins to fixate on the hug that never happened.
You remember when you said, hug each other, and I'm trying to hug, but she's like changing the conversation.
Okay, well, if I'm being honest, I didn't really see you try to hug her.
I'm so glad that Brandan sees through Mary's BS right now, because he's absolutely right. Mary also needs to take blame. She also didn't try to initiate a hug.
This is Mary.
Mary, nice to meet you.
Hug.
Why are you so white?
What, you mean
You've
here?
lived here for like ever.
I'm actually more tan than when I got here.
Yeah, we can clearly see that they're both responsible here. Mary can't just pin all the blame on Angela. Like, this would be a totally different conversation had Mary attempted a hug, but Angela brushed her off. But that's not what happened. So for Mary to just bring this up as an attempt to poison Brandan's mind, a way of trying to get him to pick sides, pick her over his own mum, is frankly really disgusting, really toxic behaviour. But Mary's pressure only intensifies.
I'm not trying to defend her.
From the start, you're defending her, so I want you to be in my side.
I am on your side.
You promised me.
Mary, why are there even sides here? What are you talking about? Angela is Brandan's mum. She hasn't done anything out of line yet. Why is Mary so determined to turn Brandan against her? At the end of the day, look, the way that Angela's treated Mary, it's not exactly the friendliest, right? You can tell that there's animosity there. But considering how toxic Mary is, considering everything Angela's seen and heard with her own eyes and ears, her behaviour is totally valid. Any mum would act as Angela has. They'd put the interests of their children before anything else. And it's precisely this kind of behaviour that we're seeing from Mary right now. This guilt tripping that she's trying to do to force Brandan to pick sides that warrants the way that Angela acted. Now, what's really encouraging to see is that Brandan has got stronger since he's arrived in the Philippines. He's no longer the pushover that he once was. He's willing to stand up to Mary, and he's making it clear he has a mind of his own. Mary can't just force her opinions onto him anymore.
I'll get my mom to talk to you. It doesn't have to be right now, but maybe we can get a an actual conversation started.
Rather than instantly rolling over and doing whatever he can to appease Mary, as we've seen numerous times before, this time Brandan has the strength of character to stand up to her. You can see that Mary doesn't like this, but the truth is, what Brandan proposes is the right way to handle things. He needs to get his mum and Mary to have a civil conversation. They both need to sit down and get to know one another properly. But the problem is, it might already be too late. Angela's mind might already be made up. And if that's the case, as Brandan explains, that leaves him in a very tricky situation.
My biggest hope for my mom visiting us in the Philippines is for her and Mary to be good with each other, because if something bad occurs between them, I'm in the middle.
Yeah, I think we can all agree that it's highly unlikely that Angela and Mary will ever be anything more than just civil. But for the sake of that child, they should at least try to be civil. Personally, for me, the best thing to come out of this mess is that finally Brandan is fighting his own corner. But you get the sense there's going to be a lot more fighting needed.